Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another weekly fighting roundup. I'm very sorry about the delay on basically how long this has taken to come out, but nonetheless, I'm still here. I don't really know if you care too much about the news at this point or not, to be completely honest, but nonetheless, like I say, I'm here and I'm delivering the weekly fighting roundup from last week. And so if you're new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like video if you do indeed like video, and let's get straight into it. So, of course, starting off with the boxing and news, and so King will fight October 18th, Tellez versus Gonzalez, and Tapia versus Suave Adria will fight October 19th. Joshua has said that he's not retiring. Of course, there was talks about that versus after the Dubois loss. I mean, it was never really talked about from him, but all the fans were saying that perhaps that would be a good option for him to take because it was such a bad loss. But nonetheless, it was kind of obvious that he wasn't going to retire because he still wants to get the rematch and he still wants to rebuild, and he still in his head believes that he can get to becoming a freeweight world champion again, which I suppose you never do know with boxing, but it's going to take an awful lot for him to do at this point in his career. Scotney versus Motu is off. Motu is fighting on the Jarnebek undercard against Johnson just tomorrow in the way of filming it. Munguia is set to face Gavril at December 14th, which I think is an interesting fight. Obviously, it's not Balanga, which everybody kind of thought would be the next option, but Gavril is another opponent. I suppose it's nice to see him wanting to keep active with Top Rank now. White has again called out Chisora. It seems like White's really eager to fight him, which I suppose I don't really know how much it makes sense for a fight for him, but nonetheless, it's a fight in which he's now, multiple times called him out, and I suppose that means that he wants to fight him a lot. I don't know, but maybe we'll see that fight. It seems like Dillian White isn't really that bothered about fighting anybody else at the moment. Majid will fight Kin Sion October 25th. Co versus Gallegos, Mikado, Williams, Thompson, and Mohammed will fight November 9th. EBU have ordered Silva versus Ryan. IBF have ordered Kakache versus Nunez, which is a great fight in my opinion. And also, before that, the Silva versus Ryan EBU ordered. It's really sad to see Dolan kind of being pushed aside a bit, to be honest. I mean, obviously Dolan beat Ryan, and then was ordered to fight Silver, and obviously that's not happening now because she hasn't realistically got a big promoter, so it basically means that just isn't happening anymore, which is really sad to see, to be completely honest. The Four Kings documentary has been released, and there's the big names. If I'm trying to remember correctly, who is that? I think Tommy Hearns, I believe Frank Bruno, Chris Eubank Jr. and Marvin Hagler, I believe, are the fighters that are based around the documentary, but it's on Amazon Prime, and I thought I'd mention it. His Excellency wants to make Joshua vs. Dubois too, so like I said, it seems like that is most likely going to be the next option. It was kind of talked about as that it was a rematch clause as soon as the fight was finished, as what Eddie Hearn was saying, but it wasn't actually an official rematch clause, so it seems like nonetheless it's going to happen anyway, but it's just interesting to see how it was kind of branded like that. But like I said, it seems like it's going to happen either way. Spence Jr. will reportedly fight Fundora in January. There's still talks about Crawford possibly fighting Fundora, but like I say, the Spence one I think is probably more likely going to happen now money wise. I think that makes sense because Crawford's in an interesting point in his career in which he's kind of talking about a lot of fighters but not really acting upon it at the moment because I think he is really eager for a big money fight, but there just isn't really many around because he has kind of dodged a few bullets. I mean, Crawford wanted to fight Canelo and then waited so long to fight him, and then obviously that hasn't happened, and then that's kind of meant that the ship has sailed on the Ennis fight for now because Ennis is now fighting, of course, Chukadzian. So yeah, that made it interesting as well. And then, of course, the Smith Jr. rematch isn't going to happen. That's been said for a while. And now Fundora and Smith Jr. seemingly going to fight. So it's interesting. I don't really know what's going on with Crawford's career. I mean, he's just recently said that he's tempted by the McGregor fight, so I don't really know what's going on, to be honest. But like I say, it seems like Smith Jr. is going to fight Fundora in January. Farrell will fight Kerr November 1st. Riziki vs Mikhailen is off again. Mikhailen pulling out again with an injury. It's seemingly a consistent problem now, which is causing a lot of frustration for Riziki and really holding up the division, the cruiserweight division, to be completely honest. And it's a real shame, to be honest, because I think Riziki is a really good fighter and these are his prime years, and he's kind of just been sat around waiting for Mikhailen for the past year and a bit now, to be honest. And Mikhailen just seems to keep calling the fights off every time it gets rearranged, which is a bit sad. Warren has sued Eubank Jr. after the comments in which he's made. Well, I think he was going to sue him, and then Eubank Jr. of course kind of did like an apology type thing. So now it seems like that isn't going to happen. De Jesus has joined Top Rank. Benavides is set to fight Hart in December. Not really a big fight in which the Morale one, in which we were thinking about that was going to happen, but I don't know why that isn't going to happen. All I know is it seems like Hart is going to be the opponent in December. Haney is suing Garcia for kind of everything that happened with their fight. Of course, Garcia, seemingly being on drugs and everything like that, and put steroids and everything, and so there is that kind of right to be able to sue him from Haney's perspective, and so it seems like that's what he's wanting to do. I don't really know too much about the law and everything like that. I'm just kind of going off what I'm hearing. Navarrete is set to rematch Valdez December 7th, and if it's anything like his first fight, it's going to be an amazing fight again, so I'm not really surprised why they are wanting to make the rematch. Edwards versus Yafai is for the WBC interim world flyweight title. Vuong versus Gwyn, Walker versus Retson, Udin, Bowen, and Jones versus Stevenson will fight November 30th. Boardman won via points versus Caicedo. Welland won via TK round 2 versus Martinez. Sams won via TK round 1 versus Ali. Robinson won via points versus Rayoyo. Olebrecht won via points versus Morena. Bartel won via TK round 5 versus Zernak. Brown won via TK round 3 versus Dennis. Edwards won via unanimous decision versus Somba to become EBU European Bantamweight Champion. And in general, that was a pretty interesting card. I mean, a good Wasserman card, a good kind of showing and display of a lot of their good fighters. I mean, the likes of Welland getting a really nice stoppage, which was nice to see. As a surprising thing, I mean, Ali and everything that happened with there, of course, he brought a lot of fans to Yoko, and there was quite a big kind of hype around him making his professional debut, but putting him in, seemingly, I don't really know how athletic he felt at the weight, but I don't know how much he looked it. But then also, of course, I'm sure he had a lot of nerves. Was it his time really ready for him to step up? I don't know. But then also against an unbeaten opponent, however, even though it was on short notice, it's an unbeaten opponent who's going to be really coming to win and really be coming to get a stoppage. It was just bad all in general, I think, for a debutant. It's really harsh upon him, and it seems like he's got quite a bit of hate because of it, which is sad to see realistically. But like I say, it's harsh, but it just shouldn't have happened in my opinion. But the Edwards unanimous decision was it was a nice unanimous decision versus Somber. It seemed like at some points Somber was having success, and it seems like he could have gotten in and won rounds and perhaps even pushed it into the later rounds. But it seems like he was continuously there, but he just couldn't follow up on his shots well enough. And Edwards in general kind of did just outbox him, and it was one of them things where it was just you a smooth outboxing type fight in which he looked comfortable and was able to find a lot of success. Edwards and then won nicely, and that's what you're going to have to do against the opponent versus Somba because he can beat tricky. Moving on, Dove won via unanimous decision versus Mejia. Simon won via unanimous decision versus Zamora. Vasquez won via unanimous decision versus Van Veek. Guinethan won via TK round 1 versus Williams. Flores won via unanimous decision versus Lehner. Schaefer drew versus Agapova. Vasquez won via unanimous decision versus Persona. Rodriguez won via split decision versus Nert to remain WBC International Bantamweight Champion. Baumgartner versus Passoon was a no contest, and it was nice to see an all women's card. There was a lot of debutants on that card, but also in general a lot of debutant versus debutant fights, which was always nice to see because they're kind of at a similar point, so it's going to make them really kind of go in as an equally matched type of fight early on in their career. Unlike, like say that Ali one where somebody like a Sams has already had that experience and Ali had been training for somebody else, and like I said, I don't know how ready you felt to wait and things like that. Like I said, I think these ones are different. But then, the main event, Baumgartner seemed happy that she won. Well, not won, but retained her title, and she got the early knockdown as well, of course, versus Bassoon. And Bassoon, looked like she was struggling a bit, but then, of course, got the head clash. And to be honest, I don't even think we'll see the rematch. It wouldn't even surprise me if we don't. Because I do believe Baumgartner probably would have gone on to be really dominant, which perhaps did surprise me a little bit, but I think Bassoon is just past the time and past her best, and that kind of period in which she had versus Taylor and that kind of spell she had there is kind of gone now. But now Baumgartner's back, and it's going to be interesting to see where she will go, where she even is allowed to go. As I don't like I say, it seems like Matchroom is still involved with her, but just I don't know what's going on with her career currently at the moment. Moving on, Sainz won via TK round 2 versus Rodriguez. Vizioli won via TK round 3 versus Lagos. Simmons won via points versus Murray. Scott won via technical decision versus Turnbull. Suleiman won via technical decision versus Trana. Bab won via points versus Majid. Yafai won via TK round 3 versus Orozco. Lidard won via TK round 5 versus Davey. McGray won via KO round 2 versus Foster. And Harper won via unanimous decision versus Dixon to become WBO World Lightweight Champion. And, I think Matchroom have got a really good stable of fighters coming through. I mean, pretty much all the ones on that card I am a really big fan of. I mean, Suleiman I'm a big fan of. He's got a backing of JK, and they've been pushing him really well, and he's now of course been signed with Matchroom. Sainz, Vizioli, Lillard, all fighters who are getting early stoppages and really, really progressing well, and that's what you kind of want to see from these prospects, making himself a little bit different by getting these early stoppages. And of course, Brandon Scott as well is really entertaining and kind of a nice guy to see, and is always going to bring a bit of entertainment in himself. McGrail, that body shot was a beautiful body shot in which, of course, Foster was never going to be able to get back up from. But Harper did surprise a lot of people. I mean, she surprised me, to be completely honest. I got my prediction wrong for that one. Dixon perhaps was making a few rookie errors, was standing in front of Harper a bit, wasn't really moving and making the angles in which she is typically really good at, and Harper was able to punish upon that. And Harper looked a lot better at the weight. I think she was moving around a lot more, looking a lot more relaxed and picking the shots better. I think she landed some really nice shots at times. It was a bit messy. Harper did clinch a little bit and make it a little bit messy, but I think that's kind of to an extent what also did slow down Dixon as well. And in the end, unanimous decision, 3-time world champion now. Like I say, it was unexpected, not what I personally thought, and nonetheless, I think it was really nice to see Harper, get back to there and show that you can do it, even if you kind of go from the fight in which she had before, which was a really poor performance, where she looked like that was the end of her career, to now be able to have a full kind of change around and then be able to still become a world champion. It's a great story, to be completely honest, and be interesting to see what's next for her in her career, possibly a rematch. We'll see. Nempard won via points versus Alexandrov. Nadim won via TK round 1 versus Seslak. Hardy won via points versus Gomez. McNamara won via points versus McCarthy. Ali won via points versus Pollard. Akbar won via points versus Mosquera. Bateson won via stoppage round 4 versus Loshab. Hughes won via TKO in round 6 versus Antonias. Fury won via points versus Thun. Gallagher won via unanimous decision versus Alice Willits to become Commonwealth and WBO International Super Bantamweight Champion. Walsh won via TKO in round 1 versus Mould. Thompson won via TKO round 3 versus Wilson Bent to remain IBF European and WBO Global Middleweight Champion. And in general, that was really nice to see, to be completely honest. The whole card, the whole show, the whole event, GBM have really built themselves up and really, really made a name for themselves now. And I've been, going to press conferences for them and watching their fighters progress and things like that for a while now. And it's really nice to see. like I say, they've stuck to it and they've kept going, and they've got some good backing with them, and they should do, because these are great shows in which they're putting on now with some excellent fights, and some good young fighters coming through in which they're given a big platform, and then other fighters which have been at a high level and then perhaps just become short and then be able to give an opportunity here where they can rebuild, like someone like a Bateson, Hughes. It was a huge name to have on the show, and he got a really nice stoppage as well. Fury, it's always excellent to have a Fury on the show, but Huey Fury is a huge name as well, and he's been on a few now, but that was a nice decision points win versus Thun, and perhaps we'll see him onto a main event soon. The Gallagher fight, she is somebody who is clearly showing she can fight at a domestic level really well and thrive, to be completely honest. I mean, a little bit messy at times, and I'm sorry to see that Alice Willis lost. She's somebody in which I've interviewed a couple of times now, and she is a really nice person, but Gallagher has shown that kind of level, like I say, which is higher than that of domestic level. Um, Walsh, I did an interview with Walsh before, and he looked fired up, ready. He's been in the sport for a long time now, and he's just got an excellent stoppage. I mean, it was a brutal stoppage, to be completely honest. First round, which is amazing, and then also Thompson as well. It was sad to see Wilson Benson, who I've spoke to quite a few times, and is a really nice guy, but Thompson was destructive, and this is his time, and it was a really nice win for him. I would love to see a possible fights like him versus Tyler Denny would be an excellent fight, and I think there are fights available in the middleweight division at domestic level. Perhaps him versus Brad Pauls could be a good fight, or that I think there are definitely, like I say, fights available, and perhaps we'll see them soon. But like I say, it's just amazing to see GVM pushing on such excellent shows and getting quite a lot of stoppage wins, quite dramatic stoppage wins as well, which bring even more eyes to these shows as well. Moving on, Diaz won by unanimous decision versus Hernandez. Johnson won by unanimous decision versus Alamo. Melneki Jr. won by majority decision versus Haraz. Palanco won by TKO round 6 versus Lopez. Rodriguez won by unanimous decision versus Castaneda. Zayas won by unanimous decision versus Sosa to remain North American Boxing Federation and WBO neighbour Super Welterweight Champion. Carrington won by majority decision versus Segawa to remain North American Boxing Federation, WBC Silver and WBO Intercontinental Featherweight Champion. Mayo won by majority decision versus Ryan to become WBO World Welterweight Champion. And to speak about this card, which was probably arguably the biggest card of the week and the weekend, and Zayas obviously got a really nice unanimous decision win again. Progressing with every win, he's progressing a bit more, and we'd love to see him now go on to fight a real top name. But I think he is somebody who is going to be a big name, a big fighter, and really cause a lot of problems in the super welterweight division. I think he's at a point in his career now which he is going to probably push and hopefully push into these big fights. And he's got a great technique, great style. He's aggressive. He's going to be coming for a good fight, and he's got a good fan base as well. And I believe he is going to be, like I say, a threat, cause a problem in the super welterweight division, in which is in a really good position itself right now. Carrington, from what I've heard, it wasn't an amazing performance. It's interesting to see that Top Rank don't like to put out highlights of fights of their fighters perhaps not performing to best. And the Segawa came out last time out and got a really nice unexpected performance against, I believe it was Roman Villa. But Carrington, seemed to do a bit of taunting, seemed to be able to look confident and land well a bit at times. But Segawa seemed to definitely have his successes and made the fight a lot closer than I'm sure a lot of people expected. I'm sure Carrington didn't expect it to be like that, and perhaps that shows that maybe Carrington isn't quite there yet at the highest of levels. But Mayer, that fight was an excellent fight. I believe it broke record numbers for an ESPN women's main event, or at least for a long time, and that it was deserved. It was an excellent fight. Ryan, I got my prediction wrong. I thought Ryan would be able to win. I think Ryan was trying to force Mayer back, but Mayer, with her experience, just didn't let that happen. And I do respect Mayer for not really letting that happen and being able to perhaps out throw a little bit of Ryan. I think Ryan still did get a bit frustrated when things didn't go away, and perhaps that shows that inexperience to an extent still. But also at the same time, it's weird what happened with the whole paint throwing thing in the before the fight and everything like that. I'm sure, like Eddie Hearn said, that did distract Ryan and just wasn't something in which needed to happen at all. But nonetheless, Maya back to becoming a world champion. I would love to see the rematch. Hopefully, we will. If not, then see the rematch versus Jonas. I think there are still big fights around for Ryan. I mean, realistically, on paper, she hasn't really got a world champion's record. I mean, what 7-2-1 isn't really a world champion type record. But when you look at the people in which she's fought against, they are excellent fights and excellent performances in which she's had in a lot of them. And I mean, now the Terry Harper fight's definitely aged well for her. But like I said, Maya back to becoming a world champion again, and another story in which somebody who's faced a bit of adversity but then been able to come back again as well. And be able to get the nod, and perhaps she's had some close fights in her time where perhaps she could have got the nod, but this time she's gotten the nod finally for this one. And Mosey won by decision versus Kofroff. They seem to have a exhibition type fight, and that is Shane Mosey, I believe, 53 years of age, against some sort of coach fight. It was weird, but he seemed like he didn't look awful. Would like to see him fight again, not really, but he called out Pacquiao and I think De La Hoya, but I don't think that will ever happen. It was just a bit weird to see him fighting again, to be completely honest. Moving on now to MMA news. Derrida has joined the UFC and will fight Meerschaert November 9th. I think that is a great signing for the UFC. Derrida, of course, coming from one championship. Yarn vs Figueiredo, Yarn versus Richie, Volkan versus Ulberg, Song versus Salikov, Wang versus Fernandez, Zhang versus Diaz, Ravanga versus Ochoa, and Tumen Dem Barrel versus Hernandez will fight November 23rd. And I think Yarn versus Figueiredo is a great fight in the bantamweight division, which is currently wide open, to be completely honest. Gaida will fight Hooper December 7th. Velayev will fight Sterling December 7th. Duncan won by submission in round 1 versus Oki. Cavalcanti won by a decision versus Cornali. Barres won by decision versus Altamirano. Perez won by a submission in round 1 versus Zelenikova. Lapilevs won by decision versus Marias. Klein won by decision versus Roberts. Sai won by decision versus Dutton. Kutalaba won by decision versus Urslan. Ziam won by KO in round 3 versus Frevula. Shere won by TK round 2 versus Miranda. Battle won by TK round 2 versus Giuseppe. Gomez won by decision versus Brito. Imavov won by decision versus Arlen. And Moicano won by TK round 2 versus Saint Denis. And that was another brilliant UFC Paris card, French UFC card. And, them fans always come out in big numbers to support their fighters. And that ZM stoppage was a brutal knee versus Frevula, which was crazy to see. Charrier, another really good stoppage as well. He's definitely somebody in France that can become a name. Obviously, he hasn't had always the best of records and things like that, but he does definitely have that power and that entertainment ability. Battle as well, another very good TKO, and in general, I think it was overall really entertaining show and event. And Imavov, that decision versus Allen perhaps wasn't the most entertaining, but Imavov has now put himself in a really good position in the middleweight division. And then Moicano, that was a really impressive kind of aggressive grappling type style versus Saint Denis. And I'm seeing a lot of fighters, of course, talking and comparing that to the likes of Tabashvili and Mohammed, and them two, of course, being champions, get a lot of hate because of their style perhaps being not the most aggressive of wrestling / grappling styles, but Moicano is able to show that aggressive wrestling, which is still entertaining. And even with the injury, which is a crazy injury to be going into a fight with, still managed to get a really good stoppage. In Saint Denis perhaps was at one point at a feared guy in the division, but now perhaps has been shown a little bit out, and Moicano did call out Pimlet, so perhaps we'll see that next. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy it. Like it if you didn't, like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.